Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your mechtacular hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today we bring back the spirit of Gurren Lagann in two ways. First we will review a series penned by the same writer, who together with the director of Code Geass and Studio Voln brings us another wild adventure, Back Arrow. And after that we will return to the former Gainax crew Studio Trigger and the Ultra series, namely the Gridman universe, and discuss the spiritual sequel to its anime debut in the form of SSSS.Dynazenon. That's a lot of robotastic action, so get in that goddamn cockpit and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back.
So, the first show up on the docket is Back Arrow. What could we possibly hope to get from the creative minds that brought us Code Geass and Gurren Lagann?
Gurren Lagann Part 2?
I mean, almost not quite.
Not quite, but, you know, there are a lot of commonalities, especially in the later parts of the show. Let's be honest.
Which, unfortunate for all of you, we're not going to touch on much of the later half because, you know, number one, spoilers. Number two, it gets fucking crazy. You should watch it for yourself if you want to see how nuts it gets.
Yes, but maybe we can get you to actually watch it by telling you what it is about in the first place.
So, the world of Lingalind is surrounded by a mystical wall with seemingly nothing beyond its confines. Worshipped as the mother of the land, the wall delivers celestial gift capsules called Rakuho to locations across this continent. Arriving once a month, the capsules contain metallic armbands that allow the wearer to transform into a mechanical being known as a Brihite. As a result, Lingalind is thrown into constant turmoil by its warring nations, all hoping to strengthen their military prowess by procuring the offerings for themselves. One day, a Rakuho crash lands in the countryside with an unexpected inhabitant, a mysterious, black-haired man. All eyes are set on this strange newcomer who calls himself Back Arrow, when he claims to have hailed from a place beyond the wall, a revelation that can potentially unravel Lingalind's entire dogmatic foundation. So, like I said, this was a show produced by Studio Voln, who we talked about previously with, you've reviewed Ushio and Tora, which was, I believe, a reboot of that series.
Yes, I think, wasn't that I'm not sure. That was a co-pro between Voln and MAPPA, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. But anyway,
then more recently after that, they worked on the absolute masterpiece that was Karakuri Circus.
Yes, what a bummer. I mean, I loved Ushio and Tora, first of all, which I have said many times. I think that's one of my favorite reboots, remakes, remaster, whatever you want to call it, of an old franchise, and I think all of you should watch it if you're into shonen stuff or fantasy shit. It's good. It's a good series. Karakuri Circus started interesting enough and promising enough, and then completely flew off the fucking rails and into a train yard, and then off a cliff, and then managed to light some thrusters and launch itself into the fucking sun.
I still can't believe you stuck with it all the way to the end.
Just like you with a girlfriend, I had to know.
God damn it, I can't believe I'm still watching that show.
Yeah.
Fucking A.
So, well, we at least get to that and witness the fruits of that labor.
It'll probably be in the trash pile, let's be real.
So back to a good show, which I believe Back Arrow is, and I think you would agree.
Yeah, it does kind of channel a little bit of the spirit of Gurren Lagann, but I kind of feel like with how... Let's be real. Code Geass is a fucking stupid goof fest, but it's this weirdly captivating story that kind of keeps your interest beginning to end, and I feel like Back Arrow channels a lot more of that than it does Gurren Lagann.
You felt like that?
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know, because I felt like Code Geass, which maybe made it more enjoyable or less, depending on how you look at it, took itself much more seriously. And considering all the crazy bullshit that happened and all the stupid plot stuff, that made it more funny in a way. It's, you know, the ultimate version of that, I would say, is fucking Valrave or Cross Ange. So, yeah.
Why do you have to bring up cursed anime?
So, yeah, but, you know, they are kind of like the ultimate version of that. Like, trying to be gritty and dark and being hilarious because taking itself so seriously and all of that shit is so theatrical and over the top. And I enjoyed Code Geass. I feel like Back Arrow kind of has a lot of the not taking itself too seriously, except for its key important emotional moments. And that is kind of what Gurren Lagann did really well, in my opinion. And Back Arrow, for most of the time, does as well. And everything between that is fucking bonkers and doesn't take itself serious, even remotely. Like, not fucking at all. There's so many crazy gags and metaphors and weird side jokes in this and word plays and puns, all of that shit. And I feel like that is more akin to Gurren Lagann than Code Geass. But yeah, it has some of the same crazy plot twist, plot contrivance, and pulling bullshit out of your ass stuff that Code Geass has, most definitely. And another commonality with Gurren Lagann, I would say, is how it tries to constantly one-up itself, especially by the end point. This is the thing that Gurren Lagann absolutely did, where it's like, no, actually, these are the bad guys. No, actually, it's bigger than that. No, it's bigger than that. Now we are fighting, like, there's a fight between fucking universes and shit like that.
Something, all the lights in the stars are your enemies.
Yes.
Something, all the lights in the universe are your friends?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, Back Arrow doesn't get that big, I feel like. It gets fucking enormous, but, you know, still for the most part, it is still kind of contained to to the world that it starts with.
Yes. I mean, you sort of start to find out, without giving too much away, that the world is much larger than the characters previously anticipated.
Yes, which you would have guessed if there's something, there's barriers, and Back Arrow is from beyond these barriers. And
he continually insists that I've come from beyond the wall. And the first people that Arrow meets with are from this border village called Edger Village. God damn it. I'm not going to get over that name.
Half of them look like fucking cowboys, or kind of almost all of them.
like a very almost frontier village.
Yeah.
But not quite.
Which is weird because, you know, there's this weird hodgepodge of different cultures in this world. There's like one is like, I don't know, Chinese-esque country, Chinese dynasty, and the other one is, you know, like we said, Edger and all the towns surrounding it are more Western-inspired, and then we get later to one that is more European, monarchy-inspired, and it's like you got these weird different influences and cultures all mixed together with all these different lands that are at war with each other. So it's really fun. It's really fun to look at and quite diverse.
Yeah, and it sounds weird at first, but it all kind of meshes together surprisingly well.
Yeah, I would say so.
It at least helps to establish that even though this is a small world contained by this magical mythical wall that nobody knows too much about, there's at least enough in there to be like, look at all these cultures that are in here. It's some emergent storytelling.
Yes, and all of them are different enough that it doesn't feel like, I don't know, a different tune for the same kind of song. It's really like, oh no, these are completely different people in a way. So it's really interesting. And there are a bunch of different little factions mixed in between. For example, the Bishonen... Sparkly Bishonens!
Yes, the pretty boys.
The pretty boys. Who are
literally just pretty boys.
Yes.
One of them is named Bruh.
Yeah, one of them is Bruh. It's amazing. You have to laugh every time you see it in the subtitles. And yeah, they're actually literally sparking. So it's That's a nice a nice gag for, considering how other shows deal with pretty boys and how they stage them in a visual aspect and everything. So it's really, like I said, the show knows a lot about its archetypes and has a lot of fun with them. So that's great. And what it also has fun with are its battles, which I think are pretty damn awesome.
So coming off of the trash fire that was Karakuri Circus, because you said the production values kind of went downhill pretty quick after where I left off. This series held together, and the CG on the mechs, the Bryhites, was really good from beginning to end. And because every Bryhite is a manifestation of its user's conviction, which I think is such a fucking cool concept.
It absolutely is, yeah.
Because, each one is, a different manifestation. They all have such crazy unique designs. So they look so different from one another. It's like, Arrow comes down and he seems to have no conviction. So he has just this like plain white with light blue accents Bryhite. But, he starts to, as it goes on, he sort of starts to tap into different powers that it seems like not many of the other Bryhites have. Like, there's one girl, Atlee. Her conviction is, I'll manage somehow, and she can just sort of slip through attacks, just like dodge past them. No big deal, whatever. There's one character, I believe, later on, he had his conviction was to protect myself at all costs. So he had, like, stupid thick armor that couldn't be beaten. Yeah. So convictions manifested in, like, if you can think of it, it could be, it could be a completely valid conviction for a character to use.
Yes, and I mean, there's some that kind of, bend the rules a little bit, where it's like, hey, I believe in this, and suddenly I can do that.
Shut up, it's fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine. It's like, hey, if you've watched JoJo's, you've seen wilder things being pulled out of the writer's ass. So that's totally fine. And I thought, like you said, it's very interesting how they deal with that. And especially when it comes to later, character development and everything and what their conviction is, especially one of the kind of main side characters from the Edger crew. It's really fulfilling to see that character be like, no, this is actually my conviction. And actually, because of that, having a really, really, or multiple cool character moments, which I did not expect from that character. And you know who I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure. So, there are some surprises when it comes to those things. And, the characters that really rely on that, they make some good use of that kind of plot device and make it keep it interesting.
I think we should talk for at least a hot second about Arrow's name.
Yeah.
So Arrow comes flying in this Rakuho into Edger Village, and he doesn't remember a thing other than he came from beyond the wall. And he has no idea what's going on around him. And one of the villagers of Edger, Bit, bless Bit's stupid heart, calls him a Bakayaro. And Arrow takes that and says, hey, yeah, that's my name, Giant Idiot. I guess in the dub they call him a Blunt Arrow, which is fucking perfect.
Of course.
Oh, man. I remember, I think I said this during the sneak peek, that was kind of in the first preview video for the show. And, that video was unsubbed. So I was like, wait a second. That can't possibly be where he gets his name. Well, guess what? Mm-hmm. Guess what, John of the past? You were wrong.
I mean, calling the kid by its name is what you got to do sometimes. Yeah. And often enough, the shonen protagonists are giant idiots, so it works for him definitely. I mean, he's not really the dumbest protagonist we've met in shonen series, considering.
Oh no, definitely not.
He got a clever head on his shoulders, and I was surprised by how level-headed he approached certain things in the show and some stuff happening and so on. So I mean, he is still kind of narrow-minded when it comes to certain things, especially when, I want to get back beyond the wall and everything. So he's willing to sometimes to ignore what he should probably do and not what he wants to do instead of what he wants to do. And I mean, okay, that's all part of his character development, so that's fine. But aside from that, he's not like this, not throughout all of the series, he's not like this completely single-minded buffoon. So, there's more to him than his name might suggest.
Yeah, I was kind of worried he would be sort of one note, but, like you said, as time goes on, we find out, maybe he's not what he looks like on the surface.
Oh, absolutely not. But he's not the smartest character in the show. That title goes to a different one.
So... All right. So Shu is this character who we meet who was part of he was sort of a strategist for the Republic of Rekka.
Yes.
And he is a very shrewd person. He wants to basically team up with his friend Kai, who became a big man general in the Rekkan army. But as soon as he finds out news about Arrow and all the goings on in Edger Village, I don't want to say he really betrays Kai and Rekka, but he sort of goes along with what's in his personal interest.
Yes, absolutely. And he's very interested in Back Arrow and what happens around Back Arrow and what it means when Back Arrow says he wants to go beyond the wall. Like, Shu is very thirsty for knowledge and, trying to evolve himself and so on. And he goes where there is the most new stuff to learn, I guess, and trying to achieve his own goals, or that will help him achieving his own goals. So he's willing to do some scheming for that. And you're never really sure on what side he might be on the entire time and when he might switch allegiances. But he's a very fun character. And there's in the beginning, there's some, I don't know, some rough housing between him and Back Arrow. Like, Back Arrow knocks the smugness right out of Shu's face, and who can blame him? And
he just met this guy. He doesn't trust him. It's like he's just like, I don't know you. I should trust you. But then, Shu kind of slowly wins him over, and then they sort of slowly win each other over.
Yes, exactly. They start to rely on each other, and everyone relies, even though in the beginning they don't trust him, they start to rely on Shu, and they start to rely on Back Arrow and back and forth. And it's cool. And also, in the first episode, the OP makes you think that the show is actually about Shu and Kai, which was a nice twist. It's like this weird OP where it's like, what is this show? And it's just about those two, and only Back Arrow only gets into the picture, I think, in the final part of the episode. I'm not sure.
But it's right. I forgot the first episode had that different opening sequence.
Yeah, it was a nice bait and switch, because I didn't know what to think about when I watched like the first episode, because the OP didn't give me any idea what the show is actually about, and it's because they didn't want to give it away. So it was really fun. And then once we see the show has two really cool openings, so actual ones. So those are fun, and those actually tell you what the show kind of is about. And they also evolve. Yeah,
the actual first opening sequence is cool because it does that thing I love where it changes details the deeper you get into the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of fun stuff happening. And in general, it's two cool songs. And in general, the music in the show is great. It's done by Kohei Tanaka, the guy who also scored One Piece. And yeah, I thought the soundtrack was great. And very, 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 very energetic, especially when it comes to the battles and everything. Very triumphant in certain parts and dramatic, because it's this nice mix of rock and orchestra that I really like. So good stuff. And yeah, getting back to Back Arrow and Shu, I think in their conversations, and in general all of Shu's conversations, one of the main strengths of this show really shines, and that is the surprisingly quick-witted, random humor. And, just in general, the dialogue writing in this show, which is fucking superb, which I did not expect from this show. Not at all. Like, this was the last. I expected some cool mech battles and, some over-the-top shonen action, ridiculous Gurren Lagann shit. But I didn't expect the writing to be so fun And it really is. Like, I laughed at those lines so many times.
The writing is shockingly strong in this show.
Yes.
And some of the way the characters react to one another is great. Like, my favorite one is still Kai is going on this big diatribe about Shu's quote-unquote betrayal, and Bit sneaks up on him with a gun, and he's like, "What you gonna do now, big man? I had a gun to your head." And Kai's face visibly, instantly goes to, "You're fucking serious? We're really doing this?" It's the best flip. It's the best reaction in the whole show, and I'm like, yeah, no, that I feel you, man. Yes, Bit is a little shithead.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, some characters might surprise you in the show. So this in general, that's a cool thing. And like I said, I like the writing, and I liked a lot of the characters in the show. I thought Back Arrow was great. I thought Shu was great. Kai is great. Bit becomes great in a way. It takes a while. Elcha is fun. Atali is fun. Right. So yeah, there are a bunch of cool characters, and some need throwbacks to earlier series. Like we said, there are definitely some throwbacks in there. If you've watched Gurren Lagann, if you watch Gunbuster, like for example, Elcha with her mech, with her Bryhide, she can control a dreadnought that comes into the picture in the second episode, I believe, and that's where Back Arrow gets attacked. At the village gets attacked. All the people flee on this dreadnought that also gets awakened by Back Arrow, and Elcha can control the dreadnought as long as she is connected to it like a figurehead on a classic ship.
Yeah.
And Back Arrow stands at the front of the bow as well, arms crossed, which is a thing. If you watch Gunbuster and Gurren Lagann, that is one of those key images that you will remember. It's
without a doubt.
And it's absolutely in here as well. So, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of references and throwbacks here. If you watch those two shows, at least those two shows, and enjoyed them, you will like that as well, I'm sure.
I mean, there's also the rulers of the two major kingdoms.
Yes,
that are definitely worth talking about. There's the ruler of Rekka, Zetsu-Daidan.
Yes.
He's very old and frail, and he speaks very slowly and deliberately until he needs to go out and do a little fighting of his own.
Have you seen Old Man in anime?
Zetsu is a fucking wild man. He's portrayed as being so strong. So I forgot to mention earlier, the things that the characters put on to manifest their Bryhides are these armbands called bind warpers. Mm-hmm. And Zetsu is so powerful that he needs to wear like tens of them because his conviction, I don't follow a path, I make the path, is so strong that it shatters all of the bind warpers that he's wearing.
Yes, absolutely. And he has some of the most kick-ass scenes in the show. I did like his Bryhide. What we see first and what he fights in, because it kind of didn't fit what he was doing as a human character. It's like, what is this? But in the stories, there might be multiple stages to certain characters, so who knows? And that's there's just some awesome fights that he is involved in, and there's some fucking key moments. And like you said, the CG on the mechs and in general the fights are really well staged. The animation when there's no fighting is very basic. It's serviceable. It's fine. It's not off model. At least I don't remember anything. But it's not like, oh my god, standout super animation. But once the fight happens, the action scenes are really well choreographed, and especially in regards to CG and all the crazy shit happening when the Bryhides go all out. Really surprised me how good the show looked, considering that Karakuri Circus was still fresh on my mind. And Studio One can definitely do better.
Yeah, man. It looks like this was a case when I was looking on the production credits on Anime News Network that they also called in about 100,000 favors, because there's so many companies working on this one show alone. So this was something that they wanted to do and do right for certain.
Yeah, rightfully so.
because we're not going to end up talking about it, so I'll talk about it now. Boy, I wanted to enjoy Getter Robo Arc, but it has the problem where the CG on the mechs is good. It's serviceable. It's fine. And then the rest of the animation is just throw it in the fucking garbage. It's so bad. It's so fucking bad. None of the characters ever look on model. The three main characters between cuts constantly look different.
Yeah, that's a shame. Not so much in this show, so...
Yeah, so I'm super glad that this show has, what's that word? Consistency in its production. So that was definitely one of the big things on the production side that was keeping me on here. The writing and the story were, definitely there. But, if you don't have the production values, who cares? Your show could... And there's only a handful of shows I feel like I can say that I was able to hold on because of that. Like 91 Days. We've talked about this before. Yeah. Not great production, but what a fucking good-ass story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, we'll talk about a show at the end of the season that also, I wouldn't say has the highest production values or is like the most outstanding animation. But, what it does with what it has is remarkable. And considering what kind of genre it is, it doesn't need to have this super elaborate animation and everything and great Sakuga moments. But even then, certain shows just know what to do with their limited budget and use it really well. In the action shows, that's more problematic because you need these standout moments. You need these blockbuster shots. You need to be amazed by all the crazy explosions happening on screen. And if that shit looks just so fucking wonky and stiff and all that shit, then I know it pulls you out of it. So because that's for certain shows, you just come for the animation, you come for the cool action choreography, and I'm happy that Back Arrow was able to provide that.
Yes, coming just for the action. Hello, Demon Slayer.
I mean, there's some good character bits in Demon Slayer too. But,
but it wasn't enough for me.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I think one of the other big characters to talk about. I mean, there are other big major characters, but I think going too far beyond the scope of this starts to get into the twists and turns that we would be robbing y'all of.
And the show is all about the twists and turns. Some of them seem very stupid at first, and some of them stay stupid. But for some of the most outrageous ones that I was kind of like a bit pissed off by in the beginning, they actually later delivered an explanation where it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, fine. That one. Oh,
yes.
My God. Exactly what we're talking about. We can't talk about it.
No, but it was, when I watched that, the first I was like, they can't be fucking serious. I mean, the show is ridiculous, but it is too ridiculous for me. And then later on the show, it's like, no, actually, that's what happened. I was like, oh, okay. Wow, you actually made the effort to explain that shit and make it not sound like the dumbest shit ever. Thank you.
I definitely appreciated that.
Yes,
one.
Absolutely.
Yes. One of the other big characters we see a lot of is Fine Forte, and she's the ruler of the Supremacy of Luto.
That's the European-esque monarchy thing I was talking about. Well, Zetsu is the Chinese kingdom guy.
Yes. Fine is this pacifist princess, and she believes in the power of love and diplomacy. And, she tries, when Rekka tries starting some shit, she wants to be like, hey, what's going on? Why can't we talk this out? And it turns out, we find out very quickly that Fine's got a little bit of split personality disorder to an extreme. Mm-hmm. She has this dark persona inside her that is just this warmongering war criminal who just wants to see the world burn. Mm-hmm. And which is actually kind of interesting because it, depending on which personality is active, switches which conviction she has. Yeah. So she has one that is called, I believe, the conviction was love is everything, where she absorbs attacks from enemies and redirects it as healing to, friends and Brightheights and whatnot. But when her dark self takes over, she starts to absorb the conviction of others to heal and empower herself. So that comes to bear in some wild ways.
Like we said, there's so many wild twists in this show. Like, the plot is moving at 100 miles per hour in the latter parts of the show, and it's pulling a bunch of ridiculous bullshit out of its ass. But then again, it kind of does that both from the beginning, so it shouldn't bother you anymore at that point if you stuck with the show for that long and found its nonsense to be charming. So at that point I was like all in. I was like, okay, just fucking keep piling it on. I'll take it all. I'll eat it all up. It's fine. So yeah, it's ridiculous, especially how much it is at the end. And I had a lot of fun with it. And I didn't feel like I don't feel like it left me wanting for anything in regards to the characters or what have you, and the plot developments and stuff like that. I came out of it pretty satisfied with how everything was resolved. I don't know how you felt about it.
I was initially afraid that it was going to have a really sort of stupid shit ending, and it goes places, it goes weird places, but it at least kind of sidestepped my big fears that it was going to be something like really, really dumb. And it was like, no, we're gonna do this instead. And I was like, oh, all right, that's more interesting than I was expecting. So good for you guys. You brought it together not only did they bring it together in the end, they kind of held it together pretty much along the way, because like you said, even though there are things that happen and you're sort of like, what everything gets circled back to, and there's closure for almost everything. What could you ask for? So that's really fucking good.
I mean, they could still, considering how it ends, they could still do a season 2, because there's
season 2 or a movie or something.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, hey, we maybe have to go to a certain place that you don't have to see that, but it could be fun seeing it. So that might happen, and I like that opportunity, and I wouldn't mind seeing it. And the ending is fine. I think the final confrontation is decent, but not as cool as some of the ones that came before it, which would maybe be the only thing where it's like, okay, maybe not the biggest exclamation mark that we got there at the end, but it's still fine, and it's satisfying enough. There's just some better fights and battles and everything and action moments and revelations a bit early in the show. So it's completely cool. It's just like we have seen some better final confrontations. Again, Gurren Lagann. I thought the final fight in that was ridiculously cool. So it's not that, but it's still fine. And in terms of story, it works really well. So that's totally okay. And there's so much other stuff to like in the show. There's some crazy things, like one of the characters has like this weird choir of support characters that sing fucking about what is happening in the scene for some reason, and that comes out of nowhere, and I love that. I thought that was dumb but great.
They're just there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's just that's how it is. That's how it is. That's how Back Arrow is, and it's totally fine. You don't have to worry about it. It's fine. And
when the first time that happened, I was just like, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then he even brings them onto the fucking dreadnought. It's so good. And yeah, there's so many ridiculous things happening that you don't expect when it comes to characters doing new special moves and certain characters suddenly gaining abilities and finding their conviction and doing some ridiculous shit. And it's all very like, fist in the air, awesome shit. And you're like, cool. That's fucking cool. And each character kind of gets a cool line while finishing off an enemy or delivering a cool blow or something. I think one of my favorites is Prax, who is like this the general of Fine. And she just delivers one of the best dunks in the series. She says to one of the enemies she, I think, just finished off, "You can hide your face, but not your lowly stench."
Ooh, got him.
So fucking good. I love it. There's so much stuff to love in this show, and you just have to accept that there is it's just a lot of dumb shit, but it's really good dumb shit. So, yeah. I think the only thing I didn't like about the show was fucking Elcher's granddad, Burke. He's a fucking idiot. Like, he is so annoying and such a fucking old asshole. Like, almost from beginning to end. Like, in the final few minutes of the show, he just isn't in the show really anymore, so he's can't be an asshole anymore. But for most of the time, like, at some point, the crew, he wants to convince the other villagers of the ship, and which complicates things. And then he says, basically verbatim to Elsa, I think, or Back Arrow, "Can you blame us for being stuck in our old superstitious ways?" Yes, abso-fucking-lutely, you dumb idiot, you asshole. And, he never takes responsibility for anything and pushes it all on Arrow and his granddaughter. If she really is his granddaughter, I'm not sure. And I hated him so much. There's a scene where one of the characters, Werner, assures him that the villagers will have refuge and a new home in Luto to make amends. And, like, Burke is super glib about it. It's like, well, thanks, how nice of a noble to lower himself to our level. And like, fuck you! Fuck you, you old good-for-nothing cunt who can only complain. I hated that guy so much. I wanted to fucking murder him. He's the worst character in this show, and I hope that he would fucking die, but he didn't. Sorry, spoilers. But holy shit, what an asshole. What a fucking asshole. I always waiting for him to get his fucking comeuppance, and it never came. So that was a bit of a disappointment. But all the other stuff in the show, it is good. So I was able to look past that. But every time he opened his mouth, I was so pissed off. He's such an asshole. And, the show doesn't really, like I said, he doesn't get his comeuppance. And the show doesn't really paint him enough as the obvious asshole. It seems like kind of, it wants to say that he has a point at certain points, which he does not. Never. Absolutely not. And yeah, that was a bit annoying. But aside from that, the character roster in this show is really good. So yeah, only that one character is really annoying, even more annoying than the bad guys, which get their comeuppance. So that was fine. Yeah.
Boom. Blowing him up.
Yeah. Goddamn.
Put him on blast.
Fuck Burke. Fuck that ass. Fuck him into oblivion and back. Anyway, that tirade aside, I think we both really love Back Arrow.
Yeah, there's not a lot of original anime, even though both of the shows we're talking about today are. And there's even less, good mecha anime with, good writing and characters that are interesting. So this was a very welcome surprise. And I would hope that maybe there's some more of it in the future, just because they left us on a heck of a detail at the ending. So, like even just a movie of some kind I would take. Yeah. But, I don't know what's in the pipeline. Can't say for sure, but it'd be nice to have something else in there.
I didn't see many people talking about the show, so I don't know how successful it was. It was, for the people who watched it, it was well liked, I think. A lot of people were surprised by how fun this show is. So I think the response was mostly good, but I don't know how many people actually watched it and if there's enough reason for the studio or for the production community to bring the show back. No idea. It would be great, but yeah, we'll see. I would love it. And like you said, a movie would probably be enough for what they set up at the end of the show. I think you could make that work. And, watching that show on a movie budget sounds pretty enticing. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it happens. For now, I would say just, if you love mecha anime, if you've watched Gunbuster, if you watched Gurren Lagann and enjoyed those shows, if you watched Code Geass and enjoyed that, definitely check this one out. It's got enough of callbacks to each of these shows to make you happy for that alone. And then it brings a bunch of new and interesting stuff in it and a lot of ridiculous bullshit. And if you're into just a giant spectacle of a nonsense extravaganza, you're in for a good time, absolutely. John, what is your final word on this?
The show was bonkers. It was just bonkers, but it was so much fun to watch. But yeah, definitely give it a look if you're interested, because we glossed over a lot. Yes. Because there's a lot of good shit in this show that definitely bears seeing with your own eyes.
Exactly. It lifts a lot from of the a lot of the weird twists. And if you give those away, that's you steal what is half of the fun of that show. So we didn't really want to go into that. We could have, but we want you to check out the show and enjoy all its crazy twists and turns like we did, and be amazed, maybe sometimes baffled, and maybe angry at certain points, and then at the end be happy again that they actually turned around. So, yeah, that's why we're not going into more detail and going into the later aspects of the show. Season 1 review, that's how it is. But definitely, I would say check it out. And where's it streaming, John?
It is streaming in the States on Funimation and elsewhere on Anime Lab and Wakanim. If you want to watch back Arrow, you can drag your mouse cursor arrow to a website where you can watch. It's a fun show. Y'all should check it out.
God damn it. One day after school, first-year high school student Yomogi Asanaka comes across a starving man under a bridge. Introducing himself as Gauma, the strange drifter informs Yomogi that he is a Kaiju user, a person who deals with the Kaiju, monsters who bring harm to the city and its citizens. The following evening, Yomogi runs into Gauma and his classmate Yume Minami. Simultaneously, a Kaiju appears in a populated area of the city. Due to Gama's lack of experience controlling the Kaiju, he brings out a mysterious object from a glowing pouch, summoning a giant robot known as Dynazenon. Requiring the cooperation of 4 people, the mecha drags Gauma, Yomogi, Minami, and Koyomi Yamanaka, an unemployed man who was wandering on the street, into its cockpit. Their encounter with the Kaiju marks the beginning of their entanglement with the Kaiju eugenicists, Kaiju users who manipulate the monsters with ill intent, and their efforts towards bringing out the full potential of Dynazenon. So yeah, SSSS.Dynazenon, just getting the punctuation right,
you have to say the dot every time.
Of course, is the kind of sequel to SSSS.Gridman.
God damn it.
Which is a show we both reviewed, which also was a sequel to the live-action tokusatsu show Gridman, the Hyper Agent, which just has been released on Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray is on the way to me, so since I've never seen that series in full, I'm gonna do that.
Oh yeah, we actually got in copies of that at work. Maybe I should grab it.
Yeah, it might be fun. I'm gonna watch it and tell you all about it. I mean, could do a review of it. I mean, it's not anime, but since it's kind of, the origin of a show we reviewed, maybe. Anyway, we'll see. But yes, Dynazenon. It's, like I said, kind of sequel to SSSS.Gridman.
God damn it, stop.
In the sense that it is set in the same universe, but with mostly different characters. None of the cast return, which is kind of a staple for a tokusatsu series. In Kamen Rider series, for example, you never get the same writers, usually, except for, the big crossover movies and everything. The same writers in 2 seasons. It's always a new writer. It's always a new supporting cast and so on. It's the same here. All the new characters, like we said, Gauma, like we said, Yomogi, and so on, they're all new. They weren't in Gridman. There's might or might not be some cameos of characters that we've already met in the Gridman anime, but their importance kept to a minimum, and the focus is definitely on the new cast. But aside from the characters being new, there's not that much new going on production-wise with Dynazenon. It's 12 episodes, it's produced by Studio Trigger, just like the Gridman anime was, and it's written by Keiichi Hasegawa, same writer as the Gridman anime. Also, some episodes of various other stuff like Phoenix, Zoids, Rockman Exe, Big O, Astro Boy 2003, and more. It's directed by Akira Amemiya, same director as the Gridman anime. Also Gurren Lagann Parallel Works, also animation director on a couple of episodes of the original show, also the series director of Inferno Cop, episode director on Kill la Kill, and a bunch of other stuff. And also, a bunch of the same animators, a bunch of the same episode directors. I think the music is done by the same guy, Shiro Sagisu. So, yeah, pretty much the entire crew is returning for this spiritual sequel. And it definitely shows because The Gridman anime was fucking, production-wise, looked amazing, and so does Dynazenon. I think it's a beautiful fucking show. It's ridiculous beautiful. This has got I think the one thing that immediately jumps out at you are the same incredibly expressive eyes that the Gridman anime had, where it's like this very detailed prisms in the eyes and very weird color spectrums and everything. So it's really cool just seeing the eyes of the characters for some reason. Like, they put a lot of work into that. And it's the same for Dynazenon. You had a lot of interesting environment and scenery shots, which you also had in Gridman. It definitely shows that this is the same crew working on this show, the same as the previous one. Story-wise, they kind of venture into the same territory in the sense that the Gridman anime, as much as it was about giant-ass, kind of mecha guy, Ultraman dude fighting giant kaiju, it was more about characters dealing with their personal holdups and issues. And especially, since this is kind of a sequel, but not really, we're not going to go into spoilers for Dynazenon, but we're going to go into spoilers for the Gridman anime, so be aware of that. So, with that being said, the Gridman anime was mostly, or the most interesting aspect of it, was its villain, quote-unquote, Akane Shinjo. And yeah, she was probably one of the most interesting, she was not the ultimate villain, but she was kind of the catalyst for all that is happening throughout the show. And she's creating most of the kaiju in the beginning and everything. Of course, she's being kind of manipulated by the bigger villain, Alexis Carib, which might or might not have been Khan Digifer from the original Gridman show. I'm not sure. Probably. But yeah, the focus was definitely on her and her trauma and everything, and how she came to be in this world, and which turned out to be like this world kind of populated with digital beings, but also managed and controlled by her and everything, which we don't know in the beginning of that show. That is all kind of a world created by her, because she had some bad experience in her real life, and this is her way of coping with that and trying to create her dream world and everything. And the show is really about her coming to terms with that and saying goodbye to that and returning to the real world, which resulted in this fantastic final image where she rises, with live action footage, where she rises from her bed that she slept in and raises her head just like Gridman does in the OP. What a fucking stellar way to end your show. What a nice way to circle around to literally the first thing we kind of see. So yeah, one of the many reasons why I love the Gridman anime. So yeah, of course, in Dynazenon we kind of go the same direction, even with more characters, because all of the main characters in Dynazenon kind of have like this thing, this regret in their life that they can't get over. Like, for Yugami, our ostensible main character, he has kind of trouble with his mom. She wants to remarry, which he doesn't like because he really hasn't come to terms with his dad being not in his life anymore. I don't know. Did his dad die, or did they just divorce? I'm not sure. But anyway, his dad is not in the picture anymore, and he still, tries to get kind of over that, and now his mom is trying to start a new life with a new man and everything, and he has some trouble with that. But there's also some other personal problems that play into that. And then there is Koyomi, who is like this hikikomori, the guy, the shut-in, who lives at home, who is jobless and everything, and is afraid to go outside and all that stuff. And he has some hold-ups with what he did together with his old girlfriend, and chances that he didn't take, and paths in life that he didn't take, and he regrets that. And then probably Gauma plays into that too, because his relationship with the kaiju eugenicist is also very complicated, because they have a shared relationship, a shared history, and so on. And I don't want to go too deep into that, because there are some also nice plot twists when it comes to that, I would say. But he has also some regrets because of that, and probably the character with the biggest regrets, and I would say maybe even the main character of the show, maybe not from the first glance, but she definitely is Yume. Yeah. And her sister, Kano, died, and her parents are fighting because of it. Her dad is drinking, And ostensibly she made a promise to Kano and didn't keep it right before her sister died. So now she blames herself for it and is asking out guys and then immediately ditching them. And she's going through a very difficult phase in her life. And then once she meets the other characters and gets roped into all that kaiju business, she kind of starts, with the help of her new friends, finding the strength to actually trying to come to terms with what happened to her sister and how that affected her. And, you know, it takes her a long time to get there, which is probably the most interesting aspect of this, because she tries to investigate what actually happened to her sister. Is there maybe some foul play at work here? And the show goes into that very much, and with all the other characters too. And I enjoyed that a lot. What did you think about how the show handled all the different character stories?
It's interesting because you sort of expect that there's going to be like a commonality between all of their individual plot lines. It doesn't really work out that way, just because everybody's got their own shit they need to work through.
Yes.
And I think, you know, even though this is a short show, it's just 12
episodes.
12 episodes. Mm-hmm. They work through all of these character stories really well.
Yes.
And a lot of it is really compelling. Like you said, I didn't really think about it before. But you saying Yume is ostensibly the main character, I agree with that. I didn't really give it any thought previously. But yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, they spent the most time on her character story, on the stuff with her sister. So just from screen time alone, I would say that her stuff is the most important one. It's also the most emotional resonant one, I would say, just because you really start to feel for her and feel what she is going through and, you know, all the baggage she has and the trauma she suffered because of her sister dying and everything. So, yeah, I thought she felt really relatable, her lashing out in certain ways, trying to be a rebel in a way and so on. So I totally understood that, and I really liked what they did with her character, even more than the other characters, really. I thought her character story was definitely the strongest and had the best payoff in a way, even though it's a surprisingly, let's say, somber and kind of sad payoff. It's not really like, hey, has like this super happy ending. It's more about the character realizing that you can't change certain things. And
I think it's fitting.
Yeah, it's totally fitting. It's just that some people might expect, oh, she's totally gonna find something and it's gonna make her happy and change her life in super ways, but that's not really what this is about, and that's not really what her character journey is. Her character journey is to learn to cope with what she experienced, and that she has to learn that sometimes bad shit happens and there's no big bad at the end of the road, and you just have to deal with that, but you learning to deal with that might also be enough. And at the same time, finding people that help you through that. And I thought the show did a really good job at showing us this kind of character journey through Yume's story. I really liked it. And they throw a bunch of other stuff in there that is interesting themes like bullying, for example, and getting through that. And one of the other characters that we haven't talked about yet, Chise, who hangs around with Koyumi for some reason that is never really explained, if I remember correctly.
Apparently, she's Koyomi's cousin?
Is she? I never picked up on that. Yes, she always calls him... Does she call him sensei or something?
She calls him senpai all the time.
Senpai, right.
Apparently she is the cousin of Koyomi.
All right. Well, we meet her when she hangs out in his room, and it's like, who's this girl? And I felt like the show never explained how they met, but maybe it did, and I missed that.
Yeah, I feel like it was mentioned in passing, and we all kind of breezed over it, but looking it up just now, it's like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Then at least we got an explanation for that, because it was always a bit weird to me. It's like, hey, there's this girl in his room. Okay. How do they know each other? Who cares? Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of also the point, because she comes across as like, why is she in this story? Because she is not part of the Dynazenon crew, really. She's not pulled into that mech like the others are in the beginning, where it's like, she's always tagging along, but she's not really there helping fighting the kaiju and everything. She's just a witness, and she's just hanging around, and you're like, what is her deal? And that's actually what becomes her problem, because she wants to belong. And she had some problems with fitting in the past already. And now she kind of felt like she found new people that she liked, but she isn't really part of the group because she's not really part of the fight. And her trying to find her way into that group and how to belong and how to become an important member and stuff like that. That's also an interesting story. So yeah, I enjoyed that as well. I thought these character stories in the show, again, I don't know if I liked any of them as much as I liked Akane's story in Gridman, because I thought that was just really well done, except for maybe the final few episodes where she becomes just a damsel to be rescued by, our other characters. But aside from that, I thought her character story was just one of the most interesting things I've ever seen done with an anime villain or an anime antagonist, because she's not really a villain. She, kind of is, but she's at least sympathetic and she has a big turnaround and everything. And with this, you kind of get quickly filled into what these characters are about. And then it's about them learning how to deal with their holdups, with their trauma, with their baggage and all that. So that's cool. And you wouldn't really need that in a ridiculously well-produced show where giant dragon mechs fight giant monsters, because, that's a big attraction in itself, and that is also a really fun part in the show. But I'm really glad that they also put a lot of meat on those character bones. So good stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Are robots fighting giant monsters cool? Sure. But it wouldn't carry the whole show.
No, that's true. I mean, if it's really well done, it can, but if you get some really interesting character stories as well, that makes the battling all the more interesting, because you care more about the characters and you worry for their safety and stuff like that. So that's cool. That's definitely cool. Not to say that the battles in the show are not fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It really already starts amazing. Like when we see, and I mentioned that in the sneak peek, when we see the first battle from Yomugi's perspective, he hears the main theme of the show in a muted version in the cockpit, like from the OP. And I was really like, I asked you, does that mean the music is actually playing when they change to like the Dynarex form of Dynazenon? That's fucking hilarious.
Be the case.
Yes, it must be. It's amazing. I love that shit so much. It's just a fun little detail. And the show is full of these little cool details. The Gridman anime already had that, where the characters are a lot more intimate with each other, just in terms of body closeness, I would say. Just, than I see in other anime. They're like, especially when it comes to a lot of the female characters who just fucking hang out with each other, arm in arm. Yume and her best friend, definitely, you see them do that a lot. And that already jumped out at me when they did that in the Gridman anime, but also even more so here, where it's like, you never really see that in other anime. Characters being so close with each other when they casually hang out together. And their bodies just being really close to each other, and they're just being really comfortable about around each other. And that's such a neat thing that you rarely see in anime. And yes, I really like that. I think that's just one of these nice, distinctive features of this universe and this production crew that they make an effort to show that off. And I appreciate it. I think that's really cool, especially because it's so rare. We haven't really talked about our villains yet. The Kaiju eugenicists.
What a fucking name.
They're an interesting bunch, because they appear on the scene and you get the feeling they have a beef with Gauma, and they kind of just want to use Kaiju to wreak havoc, but you don't really know why in the beginning. And also they feel like a bunch of goofs a lot of the times, especially one of them who really gets stuff thrown in his face a lot, mostly buildings. But it's really funny, especially how they behave around our main characters sometimes, because one of them just starts trying to become friends with all the other characters who hang around with Gauma, and then maybe in one episode they all go to the water park and meet each other there. And it's like, these are your villains. They're just casually wandering around next to our main characters, and no one really bothered by it. It's so weird. But
no
it's
one
also
is bothered by it except for Gauma.
Yeah, Gauma has a giant beef with them, and he wants to beat them. And we later learn why and what his deal is and everything. Which is also kind of ends on a somber note, really. But it's cool stuff. I don't know if they did all they could have done with those characters, but they were an interesting twist on villains in the show, because they really, except for, controlling the kaiju, they didn't really behave like villains for most of the time. They were just like this weird, cocky teenagers, like a bit of maybe, I don't know, theatrical high school weirdos. So, I don't know.
I mean, you're not wrong, but...
Yeah, it's really, really strange villains, but very enjoyable. I enjoyed it. The way the kaijus work in this world is interesting as well. They grow through people's will and are kind of formed by people's will in a way, and that also plays into, the character stories and everything. And yeah, I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed that, at least in the beginning, they don't always directly combine into Dynazenon. They try to do something more with the individual vehicles that Dynazenon is formed of. One is a racing car, one is a jet, one is a small mech guy, and one is a submarine. And there's always, usually, a very convenient body of water next to the battle scene where the submarine can hang out. I mean, sometimes it's just on the fucking ground and launches its torpedoes, but mostly it's like, oh, that's nice that there's a river there, or a pond, or a lake, or the sea.
Convenience is fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's totally okay. It doesn't pull you out of the show or anything. It was just a funny bit. But yeah, usually tokusatsu shows rely way too quickly after its first episode or something. They after the first episode or something, they just rely on their full Megazord form, if you want to call it that, from Power Rangers. And then they don't do anything with the actual pieces of that form. And I feel like in this show they did. They used the individual parts of Dynazenon's body more than once in individual episodes. And I really enjoyed that. I thought they actually do some cool battle strategies with those different parts. And it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's not... You're right. It's usually just, let's make the big robot. No, you want to see some variation. That variation is there with this show.
Yes, and there are also a bunch of different combinations in regards to Dynazenon. Like, we see a really cool one at the end that is the most theatrical transformation bullshit with the music and everything. And I laughed so much when that happened the first time, but it was also very awesome. And I enjoyed it a lot. And I haven't mentioned that yet. I mean, we talked about the OP, but I haven't mentioned how fucking good the OP is. Like, I might even like it more than the OP for the Gridman anime. It's really fucking good. It's a banger in my opinion.
Fucking... I think Dynazenon's opening song is better. At first, I wasn't super about
the
opening sequence. Yeah. But again, like with Backer, we just talked about, as you get deeper in, stuff changes. There's more details. And it's like, oh, okay. No, they were just saving it. They were holding back to show us the good shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I always, like, from the beginning, I really like the final shot where Dynazenon in his Dynarex form just lands behind all the characters, and, the song hits the final vocal part and everything, and it's just this really cool epic image. And then you get this synth key melody going back and forth, and that's really nice. I thought that's just a really cool moment. Fantastic OP yet again.
It's our boy Masayoshi Oshii. He was in this season a couple other times too. He was rocking out with the intro for Dragon Goes House Hunting. So
nice. So yeah, I don't know if we can say anything more about the show again without going too deep into spoilers, which I don't want to do. I mean, you get the gist of it. Like I said, the show is mostly about our main characters facing their regrets and moving past them. And that is probably the most potent stuff in this show. Like we said, the battles are great. The production qualities are through the roof. It's a really good looking show. It's a really good sounding show. All the characters are fun in their own right. But what I am here for, surprisingly, after watching this show, just like with Gridman, is the potent character drama and what these characters actually do. Not all of them. I feel like some of those resolutions went by kind of fast. You could say that Koyomi and Yomogi's stuff, and maybe even Gauma's stuff, considering how it was built up, it wrapped up pretty quickly in a way, and there was not that much to it, to the resolution, and how they got to that.
Yeah, I was hoping for a little more for Gauma, but
it was still interesting seeing that, and I think the most interesting stuff is Yumi's story. And they did that really well. They could have focused just on her, but they also throw in some interesting stuff for the other characters, so I'm fine with that. Of course, if this would have been a 24, 26 episode series, they probably would have gone into much more detail on the other character stories and spent more time on it. But doing that in these 12 episodes would probably have robbed Yumi's story of the impact that it had. And so it was good that they focused on one story and did that really well, and kind of did, a good thing with the other characters, but wrapped that up rather quickly. And yeah, you're right, Gauma is probably the one that suffers the most from this, where it's like, yeah, you see his background and everything, but if it's like, okay, maybe you could have spent some more time on it. And maybe there's some in Gridman that explains that or stuff like that in the original show that goes into that. I'm not sure. I think there are some references to that, and he might be related to one of the characters in that show. I'm not sure. But we'll see. Anyway, it's not that important, and I don't think you feel let down by it completely. I liked all the stuff that was in the show. I would have maybe liked more of it than we got, but considering the runtime, it's totally fine. So, yeah, and like I said, it has one really, really good character story in it, and of course, amazing battles. And everything, and really good looking action, and some wild visual shit that is happening in the later parts of the show. So, yeah. Cool stuff. Again, we really liked the Gridman anime. I think both of us really liked Dynazenon. John?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's got more cool character drama. It's got the big robots.
Absolutely.
And
big monsters.
Oh, yeah. And, I'm hoping that this Gridman universe that they're trying to establish, gets to go on to have even more entries.
Yes, apparently it will. I'm not sure what comes next, but I think they've already announced something that will.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I think the anime ends with the tease for next Gridman universe. I don't remember when that came up, because I don't remember that being in the actual show, but there's an anime news network article. Yes, Gridman cross Dynazenon. So we're going to have a crossover thing, apparently. I don't know what it is, if it's going to be a movie, if it's going to be a new series or whatever, but apparently we're going to have a meeting of the two big ones in whatever comes next. I would expect it to be a movie, but we'll see. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Can you fucking imagine Trigger on a movie budget on those things?
Oh no!
Are we even ready for that?
Give it to me.
Yes, absolutely. So, and even if it's a series, totally fine with that as well. I'm looking forward to seeing maybe some of those characters again and doing something interesting with that. But that these crossover things kind of scream movie, and just them both forming an alliance and battling a giant ass kaiju or whatever. And maybe Kantichifil will return. But it's probably going to be a shitload of fun, and I can't wait to see it. If you want to see Dynazenon, it's streaming on Funimation and Netflix, maybe, apparently.
I think depending on where you live.
Yes, and on Wackenham over here in Germany. And I wholeheartedly recommend you to do that, because it is definitely worth your time, in our humble opinion. And yeah, SSSS.Dynazenon, just like its predecessor, SSSS.Gridman, is a really good time, so please check it out. And that is a wrap on the 117th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jack Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
Take care, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
War has changed, and it still sucks!
We'll transcend time to sing our pleasure.